out alone to show me the way. You wanna be a part of Sunset Boulevard. I woke up after
Task number 1 for the new show. We need another intro. Can't use the same intro as mine for tonight's show, can we? Well, I guess right now we can, because that's the intro that we got. So, hey, everybody, my name is Zach Clayton. I am the president and founder of Community Pay It Forward. And I am one of the many people who are right here on the IMpACT channel trying to make a go of turning this into a nonprofit so we can help individuals. And yeah, I know, Sarah, like I said, I just figured it out myself, because I was like going, wait, I don't have an intro. And I thought of this literally as I was taking you guys off the screen, and it's like going, hit live, hit intro. I don't have an intro for this show. So yeah, that's kind of how that worked right there. So, but anyway, we are going to do this show. We're going to do a little bit different, because we're going to bring up a great friend of mine, somebody who is phenomenal at telling us history of places. He deals in the paranormal world, which is something that I am fairly new to, but becoming quite if I don't say myself, not an expert at. I still don't understand a lot of it, but this guy really does. This guy's really good at what he does. As a matter of fact, this guy took some of the information that we found just a couple of weeks ago, and he had a fantastic show right here on the IMpACT channel about Cheeseman Park down in Denver. And we can break into that a little bit. We can break into a little bit of that here in just a couple minutes. But I'd like to bring on Nick Muley. He is one of my very great friends. Nick, brother, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you, Zach?
Doing good. So you and I share a passion about history. And that's one of the things that when this conversation with Jeremy started on, hey, what can we do to kind of tie our two networks, IMpACT and things together? What can we do to kind of bring this together? And the first and the most natural thing really was, let's bring Nick together, because he and I both love history. You know, we both love talking about history. And Jeremy also has that passion about, well, what can we do to, you know, save some of these wonderful places that you talk about. You really do a lot to educate people on some of these buildings, but one of them that is in a lot of trouble right now is Waverly, and we do a lot of talk about that, because I know my fiance, she is in absolute love with the place. Anybody in the paranormal world loves Waverly, because they're not just because it's active, not just because of the history behind it. But you and I, as I just mentioned to you before, if these walls could talk, the stories they'd tell.
Exactly.
If we take that away, they can't tell us any stories. Is that right?
Absolutely, because you're not only just removing, something that, not only just in the paranormal side of it, you're basically destroying what's kind of like an important piece in this case, because it's out in Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah. You're basically removing a very important reminder and well, more of a historic reminder for what Louisville was now over almost 100 years ago.
Right. And, the place just looks cool. I mean, it really does. The place really looks cool. But, you got that tunnel down below where they correct me if I'm wrong here, but they built that tunnel just so the residents of the city wouldn't see all of the expired people that died, right? They were able to take them out.
Yeah, it was known as the body chute or the death tunnel, and that was basically originally it was kind of a temporary way to removing the dead to to another somewhat temporary morgue area. But for the most part, yes, it was to keep those that were still alive who were infected with tuberculosis, not let them see whether it was their family members, their friends, their neighbors, or anybody that they knew, that, they wouldn't have to see.
I guess, we really should tell people that that's what we're talking about. This isn't a place that they just used to take people and slaughter them for, I mean, I'm just talking about, I kind of just introduce this place as, this is a historic building and now we're talking about dead things. So I guess it really would help people to let people know that it was a hospital built for to treat and help defeat tuberculosis. Unfortunately, at that time, they were way behind the times. They were doing some pretty gruesome experiments there, weren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a lot of the stories usually will say, throughout the 20s and 30s, there was almost a death an hour in that place. I mean, most of the time it was from tuberculosis, but you had, surgeons and doctors who, some of which at that time were probably some of the most, you know, best doctors that you had in that era. And, despite all their knowledge and their experiences, and especially due to the fact that there was no cure or vaccine for tuberculosis at that time, they really had to go through some very gruesome and drastic needs just to save people. And unfortunately, on some occasions, despite their efforts, some of those efforts were still fatal. Unfortunately, it was just a dire situation that you were just trying to do whatever you possibly can to save their lives.
Yeah, one of the other things about it is that with what we're experiencing right now with COVID, we all
Yes.
see the way that COVID happened, and everybody was scrambling around trying to find a cure for COVID. Everybody was scrambling around trying to find things to do. They were able to come up with not a cure, okay, and I'm not trying to get into a debate with anybody, but they came up with the vaccines and stuff that in my mind, they've calmed it down a little bit. In other people's mind, they're going to disagree with that. It's fine. We've all got our own opinion. Back then, they didn't have the scientific methods we do now. So tuberculosis ran rampant for approximately how long, Nick?
It started somewhere around, if I'm correct. I mean, and this was even before Waverly's construction. The
Right.
earliest account I've heard about the outbreak, it varies. Some of them say it starts between like somewhere in the late 1880s or 1890s or early 1900s. And on most occasions, at the end of the outbreak, usually it was by sometime by the mid 1950s, early 1960s, which was around the time when Waverly Hills closed its doors in 1962, because with the new wonder drug at that time, which could actually cure tuberculosis, facilities like Waverly Hills was just no longer necessary.
Yeah, tuberculosis, according to Google, is a contagious infection that usually attacks your lungs. It can also be spread through the other parts of your body, like the brain and spine. And a type of bacteria called Microbacterium tuberculosis causes it. And in the 20th century, TB was the leading cause of death in the United States. That was published on June 27th of 2020, and that's just that's just awful. And I know that it was something that we talk a lot about veterans on my shows, because that's one of the things that we really focus on. But one of the other things that these doctors had to deal with every day is they were working their butts off and they were losing patients every day, and I know that I've had great friends, and my grandfather, he would say it's so defeating that when you take and somebody walks in and they've got a mild case and you think that they're going to, come on, champ, you're going to pull through it. And next thing you know, they're gone. Yet you got some people walking in, they look dead already and they end up making it through. These doctors were taking their own lives at times as well, and they were getting the disease as well, right?
I was just about to say, you just took the words right out of my lips. Yeah, I mean, it was, even for the doctors themselves, that was, especially back then, somewhat an extremely dangerous job, because unlike today, where, like we mentioned about COVID, where we wear the masks and, we had to, we have other type of protective gear to, protect ourselves from other, especially deadly airborne diseases. Again, back then, they didn't have a lot of it. So even if you wore like a type of mask that may have been similar to ours, unfortunately, you were still pretty much exposed. So it was I can't imagine what it must have been like. The fact, like, for example, you had to work your shift one day, and you probably had to work with several patients, many of which who died from this virus, and then you go home, but then you have to remember that you may have to go back the next day, and experience the same thing all over again. I mean, it had to be very rough on those doctors. And again, yeah, it was a few doctors I know did die of the disease themselves. So it's like nobody was even the people who tried to help them weren't safe.
Yeah. I know that, and the thing about it is that, Waverly is a very historical place. I know I've seen a lot of specials on it, like on the History Channel, and quite honestly, if it wasn't for the History Channel, I probably would have never known anything about it. But
Yeah.
the History Channel, and my first experience with it was, of course, Ghostbusters, or not Ghostbusters, Ghost Hunters.
Ghost hunters. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those ghosts things. It was them, and I saw them go into it, and as soon as I learned about it, I wanted to learn more about it, so I watched some more about it. Waverly's not alone, though. There are so many locations out there that are dying in front of us and need our help, right?
Absolutely. We actually have one location here in the state of Illinois that is only just about 40 minutes away. It's in the town of Fox Lake, and it's a hotel that's called the Mignolo Hotel. It is, from what I've seen in the reports, in the documents, it is the oldest wooden structure we have throughout the entire state of Illinois. Um, Now the hotel itself hasn't been in operation now. It's actually been closed for about almost 60 years. I believe it was back in 1963 where that was actually the last time somebody actually checked into a room. It was originally built back in the 1880s. And if you look at the old photographs of it, like a lot of these historic buildings, it was a beautiful building. It was by the lakeside, not Lake Michigan. This was Lake Fox Lake. And of course, part of the rumor of the story was that supposedly this was also a getaway for famous for many of the Chicago mobsters, including Al Capone. But unfortunately, the building they just really didn't take a lot of good care of it. I think after when the Prohibition era began, and that's when I think again the deterioration started to occur. And then, like I say, it was up to 60. It was, I believe, till 63 was the last year it was open, and since then the entire hotel was closed, although the bar and restaurant were open, but they only stayed open until 2012 because they shut that down because of I think it was due to safety reasons. And since then the building has been sitting there rotting ever since, and it's now also listed it's on that too is in danger of being demolished. It's actually on the top 10 most endangered historic places we have here in Illinois.
Wow. What could somebody Wow, I've got a terrible echo. Sorry about that. What could somebody do to help places like this? Is there, I know that you, Jeremy, and myself have been talking about trying to front some a campaign to where we can try to help them. I know I've offered the Community Pay It Forward program to try to raise money for these causes, and I'm really hoping that we can get that started very soon, because like you said, I think that the history behind them is one thing. The paranormal thing, look, let's be honest, it's a beautiful thing. If you believe it or not, that's up to you. But I mean, an experience is an experience. But losing the history of these buildings is just, and building them the way that they're tearing them down now just to put up something else that's going to, go defunct in a week anyway is terrible.
It really is, because, and I've said this on a number of shows, and everyone else, half of the time that they demolish them, it's not even real. It's really more or less kind of a stupid reason, because they just tear these old buildings down just to put like a Walmart or a fast food place. That I've always said, it's like unlike what you see out in country, like Europe or Asia or Australia. It's like here, nobody cares. You don't even see that in Canada or Mexico. It's just really here in the US. It's just like nobody cares. And a I could even give you another good example. We just lost one great historic building, which this one was much further down. It was down in southern Illinois. It is a maximum security prison, but it was called Menard Correctional Center. It was the second oldest operating prison in the state of Illinois. It was originally built back in 1878, and although it's still still in operation, I always admire just the building itself, because if you look at pictures of what it looks like, and even one person had said this in a report, that it has like it's got like these stone, it had stone lions, it had skeleton keys, it had the scale of justice, and this one person that made a report about, he literally said that this prison looks rather more like an ornate university than a maximum security prison. And literally 140 years after it was constructed, they tore the administration building down. I mean, I saw, there's pictures of it. It was heartbreaking to see. It was like what are you guys doing? This was part of it was in the town of Chester, so it's like this was part of Chester's history right there.
Is it, in your opinion, is this something that people are not being creative enough and trying to come up with ways to use these buildings? Because let's be honest, one of the things that you and I originally met when we did an event at in Kansas.
And Fear Fest in Salina, Kansas.
Yeah, in Salina, Kansas. Gorgeous building. And I mean, we were there for 3 days, and all I did was walk around with my jaws just.
Yeah, that was me too. I was like,
because of all the Masonic,
that big.
Yeah, all the Masonic history and everything that goes through it. I mean, it's such a great experience. Can't we save places by doing stuff like that? Look, we know that some of them structurally cannot handle people like that, but I mean, there are ways, and I wish people would do this, say, hey, let's call somebody like Nick, let's call somebody like Jeremy, let's ask them to host a hunt, raise some money, and we can use this money that we raise to rebuild this history, tell the stories of this. I that's one of the things that we've been talking about doing for a while now, using what the experience that you and Adrian and Jeremy and the whole group, and let's be honest, there's a cast of thousands in here when we talk about it, get people together and do some of these great things, have some fun with people who are interested in the paranormal. That would be one option rather than tearing them down, don't you think?
I absolutely agree. In fact, when I mentioned about Mignola, I mean, I've actually been developing quite an interest, because it just seems like to me that no one else has really been trying to, try to convince the, whoever, even though it's an abandoned building, the state, it's not really, it's usually it's the state itself that would own it, try to figure out if we could convince the state of, figuring out how can we raise money to get this, a building like this back up in order. We'll put together an event, and that's been something Jeremy and I've spoken about. I think it was me, Jeremy, I think one other person, I can't remember who that I forgot who that was, but we did have the idea of wanting to put some type of event like that together, whether it's a Paracon or a ghost hunt or something like that, and exactly, do exactly what you just said, try to raise money to save these places, because whether whether people in these towns, want these buildings or not, they're important for people who, they're important for others. So I think it's definitely important to save them.
I think one of the things that people in the community, ones who don't care about something like that, I think one of the things that they need to remember is that, what, they wouldn't have a history if it wasn't for buildings like this. Their town would not be in existence if
excuse me, sorry,
if it weren't for towns like this, if it weren't for the people who came before them. It's kind of like people who want to take and disregard history because it didn't go exactly right. Well, that's one of the greatest things about history, is that we get to learn about things. I mean, some of these buildings weren't used for the best things, and some of them weren't used properly, but that's the reason to keep them around, because the more we keep them around, the more we can learn about what happened, the more we can steer away from stuff like that.
Definitely. I mean, and there's also another thing to point out too when you think about it, is perhaps another good reason to keep these places is, and you see that, and we see this a lot with a lot of like even just like private homes. Some of these buildings had also been in the possession of maybe somebody's grandparents or great grandparents. I mean, Waverly Hills, for example, I can't remember the guy's. It'll come back to me at some point, but the owner said the reason why he bought Waverly was not only again because of its history, but it was because his dad used to work there back in the days when it was operating, and of course, obviously that's a fact, because they did a documentary and they actually interviewed his father. That was back, I'd say, about 15 years ago. So of course, sadly he's probably passed since, but he gave a very good detailed account of what his time was while working at Waverly. So you also have to kind of think that some of these places kind of have kind of like a family connection to it, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you know, we are looking to, this is one of the things that we are looking for, places that might want to let us in and see what we can do, see if we can put together events and talk to people about bringing in our group, our family from the Things Network, and see what we can do to try to save some of these historic buildings. Where once again, we are talking about we're doing our due diligence and making sure that these places would accept our help. But Community Pay It Forward, we are going to be trying to help some of these buildings. And it's very easy to do. All you got to do is scan this little code right here, this
Yes.
beautiful little code right here. And if you shop with any of those buildings or any of those businesses, I'm all wrapped up in buildings, obviously. But if you scan this and you shop with any of these businesses here, and you send us your receipt and you just let us know history, just put history. I want to maintain history. We're going to send it to one of these places, and we're going to try to help save some of these buildings. We're going to be getting more and more information on it as we go along. But hey, Nick, tell us about. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to have a show today, but which is sad. I'm really enjoying ever since you got on. It's been great. But tell us a little bit about how you run your show, because I think it is a fantastic show. I love the passion you have. I love what you do because you put so much work into it. So tell us a little bit about your show.
Well, obviously, as you guys know, it's called Paranormal and Historical Locations and Legends. And my show is, the fact is there's, like we're familiar with a lot of the other paranormal shows that are out there. Mine is actually much more different than the others. In my case, is where I present. This originally started out, believe it or not, as really I guess you can kind of say a class, if you will, for friends of mine that were interested in wanting to paranormal investigate. And it's where I give basically, education, on particular locations, as well as, haunted locations as well. But also I actually expand it from time to time to do, particular legends and that kind of thing. So it's really more of a learning experience for a lot of people, because as you've seen for some of the shows I've done, some of these places you guys have heard of before, but I've managed, even I sometimes surprise myself that I managed to find certain types of information that I never even knew about before. And I still can even, I mean, I can still recall even a few times, like when I spoke about Amityville, for example. Like I didn't have to see everybody's faces. I just knew that I was blowing people away from what I was talking about. So it's a great show. I've really been enjoying it. And yes, I mean there's a lot of work to put into these slideshows, because they start off as documents first. I have to go through like different websites, try to find the right pictures that actually are connected to a location or legend. And then after, once I get that, that's when I start turning them into slideshows. So, it's a lot of work, a lot of hours, but in the end, it's totally worth it.
Well, like I said, I think I think your show is such a benefit to what we do, because your show is a little bit different than I also work with the Rev on Friday. We have him on here, and
Yep.
you and I both work with the Rev quite extensively, and he's a great guy, and it's just something that we enjoy to do because it's part of who we are, but it's also something, what, on this channel we just want to have a lot of fun, and we want to do a lot of education, and that's really important to me. So Nick, if anybody has any suggestions on what they would like to hear you investigate or talk about, how could they get a hold of you?
So you can get a hold of me. Mostly, I mean, I know there's all these social media sites now, but you can get a hold of me on mainly just Facebook. I mean, as you guys see, as my name is pronounced here, just got to find me on Facebook. I probably will eventually actually put together a Twitch account, and you can also find me, of course, since I'm on not only your network now, but I'm also on a few other networks. I'm also on the Things Network, Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment, Skeleton Key Network, BB3 TV, and RU Media Network. So pretty much all over the place, both on Facebook and YouTube.
But you need to watch him here.
Yes.
Or one of those other places. We're not,
that's what's kind of the beauty about my show now, is that now all of a sudden, just like when you want me to come on, there's all these other networks that wanted my show to basically expand. And truth be told, again, there's really not really any other shows that I know of that does something like this. So I can kind of see why, everybody wants to have my show on their network.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's a very entertaining. I know that your the show on Amityville Horror, that was great because, everybody watches the movies and they seem to take the movies as gospel, and that's not the truth. I mean, there are stories behind, movies, and getting the truth behind them is really a great thing. So, Nick, I appreciate you joining me on such short notice. I appreciate you coming on. We look forward to you being back in your regular time slot at 6 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday. What are you going to be talking about next Wednesday?
So next Wednesday, which was, originally supposed to be for tonight, which, I will say I'm still upset about this because I was really looking forward to tonight. We're going to take things a little bit differently for this next presentation. I mean, it is still going to kind of somewhat focus on a location, but it's actually going to be more about, so I'm sure a lot of people, for example, have seen the movie The Exorcist, right?
Yep.
So we're going to be looking into the true story, the shocking true story, if you will, of behind the movie The Exorcist. And that's going to be dealing with the 1949 exorcism of Roland Doe. And that was inspired both the book and the movie. And I'll tell you this, because it's not even in the slideshow. I was never inside, but I've actually been to the house where it occurred in St. Louis, Missouri. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't go inside, but we were at least able to. It's still a private residence to this day, but you could still park outside and take pictures of it. So that might be one. There might be a possibility. This one might also be split into two parts. It depends. So. Yeah, that's what we'll be talking about next week.
Well, that sounds great. Nick, I appreciate it again. Thank you very much for coming on in such short notice. Get back to work so we can get you back on the air next week, my friend.
All right. Thank you for having me, Zach.
All right. Thank you, brother. That was Nick Muley, everybody. A great friend of ours, great friend of the show, great friend of the network. He's his show is on right before IMpACT every week at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays. So again, unfortunately, he won't be able to run today, but he'll be back next week. Hey, I'm going to run a little message here from Community Pay Up Forward, but then we're going to be back with the, as I love to call him, well, as everybody calls him, let's be honest here, Banana Man is in the house and he's come to talk to us. He's actually not in the house. He's kind of driving around, but he's still going to join us. So in just a moment, but we're going to be back with Nick Davis here in just a second. So I ran two commercials. One was because I was trying to adjust my eyes because we're being joined by Nick Davis. Sideways. Because that's what he likes to do. Nick, how you doing, brother? Uh-oh, we got you silent. Huh. I hope it's not just me. Yeah, I still can't hear you. There you go. No. Okay, Nick's working on his he's working on his audio. He'll be back in a minute. I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to play one more of my wonderful little groovy little commercials that I put together because I'm a stud when it comes to this stuff. Well, wait a minute. Nick's back. Let's see if we can hear it now. Hey, we
can you hear me now?
I got you. How you doing?
All right. Wicked, man. I'm doing great. And you?
I'm doing good, Nick. How have you been lately? I haven't talked to you for a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, moving and grooving and loving life, man. Just doing the thing, saving the world one premium at a time.
There you go. There you go. Tell us a little bit about what you do, how you're saving premiums, how you're saving people money.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I run the company RYP Insurance, stands for Reclaim Your Premium, or Reclaim Your Premium. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And what I do is, health insurance is something that is so useful for everybody. And it's something that everybody has. If they don't have it, they need it, right? The thing is, though, is the way health insurance works in the United States is completely bananas. And I think everybody would completely agree with me on that one. So the gist of how everything works is, if you're in a company that is 50 people and above, you get handed benefits every single year. It's like, hey, yeah, go ahead and register for your benefits for this year, right? However, if you're like me, if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or a mom and pop shop, like 2 to 10 people big, thereabouts, or tradesmen, tradeswoman, traveling nurse, stuff like that, you have to buy your own health insurance, right? And that presents with a little bit of a problem because the average person doesn't have the same access that a big, huge, massive corporation does, right? And so you might ask yourself, like, well, Nick, what's the difference, right? Health insurance is health insurance, right? The answer is no, not at all. Right? Everybody's big box, like one person's big box solution will not work for another person, right? And so basically the types of coverage that have general access, like prime example, like so actually, well, most states of the union don't have access to PPO coverage, right? Which is preferred provider organization, right? Where you can pick your hospital and pick your doctor. They don't have access to that on their own public marketplace. So you can like type in healthcare.gov or wherever you want to go to. And in most states of the union, PPO coverage is not an option. And that's important stuff because PPO coverage is the stuff that allows you to pick your hospital. It allows you to pick your doctor. That freedom is essential, right? What it also does is it puts the care in terms of the doctor. The doctor gets to decide what's medically necessary and best for the patient, which is a big deal, right? And so what is the difference between that and what is readily available in the marketplace today? Well, what's readily available in the marketplace today for the majority of states are 2 different plans, HMOs and EPOs. That's a health maintenance organization or exclusive provider organization, right? Both of those are what's called managed care. Now, sounds kind of cool. Not as cool as it sounds, right? Reason why, this is why, is because it lets the insurance company deem what's medically necessary, which is a big deal, right? So, it's just, you at that point in time become a number, and the insurance companies are just doing, stuff to basically financially align themselves, which is, it is what it is, but it's definitely a big pain in the butt, right? And it's not the way it's supposed to be, right? The other thing about it is those HMOs and EPOs only work in the state you live in, which is a big deal. So, prime example, like I had a client, and he was like, hey, man, so what you're telling me is, with this plan that I have right now, when I go snowboarding in Colorado, if something were to happen and he needed a doctor, my insurance wouldn't work. I'm like, no, you're out of network. As soon as you leave the state you live in, it stops working. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's insane. I didn't know that. The thing is if they told you these things, you wouldn't buy their insurance. So they just don't tell them to you. You know what I mean? And when you gain the access that I have, so I sit basically, it's a little bit about me, like, So I'm pretty sure most people have heard about insurance brokers by this point in time, right?
Yeah.
So I sit one level higher than those individuals, right? Anything that's allowed in the state that I am licensed in, I have access to, which is huge, right? So I use that as a strategic advantage to help individuals find plans that more closely match their situation, kind of like a custom tailored suit or like a shoe that's the right size, heaven forbid, right? And stuff like that is very important. So what I do in the area is, so you've got these solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, mom and pop shops, da, 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 da. The only thing they can access is the HMOs or the EPOs. What I do is I go in and I help these individuals find health, dental, vision, and benefits. I can wrap a huge, massive corporate company style structure down to just one person. Very few people in the U.S. can do that, which is kind of cool, right? So now I'm able to help those individuals that otherwise wouldn't have had access to good PPO coverage, get them access to good PPO coverage that works on or off the job, works anywhere in the continental United States, and it follows you. It doesn't follow the person you work for. That's massive. That is freedom in health insurance in general. That's how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean that's just one of the teeny little facets. Kind of what I do. I hope that answered your question a little bit.
Yeah. What states are you licensed in?
So I can get licensed in up to 33 should I need to. So I typically don't usually work in the states that have their own PPO coverage on their marketplaces, right? So, but for prime example, if you like, for example, if you're like, today, I need help, like, today, right? I have 9 licenses right now, and that's just where I have clients. So I have, right now, I have Utah, Kansas, Texas, Wisconsin, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Those are the places where I have clients at the moment, right? That being said, if somebody is not in one of those states, please still give me a call. Go to reclaimyourpremium.com. You can fill out a quick survey and send it over to me, or you can just schedule straight from that website. You can schedule a virtual visit. Advisors, we don't charge for consultations, which is a big deal, right? Yeah. And the only reason I say that is interesting. I thought it was kind of halfway common knowledge, but it's not. So I had a question, or not a question, but I had a client. This is a funny story. So I had a client, and he was like, "Okay, Nick, I have a question for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "I need you to settle an argument between me and my fiance." And I was like, I'm a smart man. No. That is between you and your fiance. Trust me. And he's like, no. It's about you. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. And he's like, no. It's about insurance. And I'm like, oh, geez, guys. Okay, guys. Okay. Just at this point, just tell me. I'm really curious to know. And he's like, so my fiance is trying to tell me that if I work with an advisor, there's a hidden fee somewhere that makes it cost more if I work as an advisor. I'm like, okay. And he's like, and now I'm trying to tell her that it's free to work with an advisor. So Nick, which one of us is right? And I was like, well, I mean, you're not wrong. I'll just put it that way. And he's like, okay. I was like, so here's the deal, bro. It doesn't cost anything to work with an advisor. There are no hidden fees. There's no nothing, right? It's 100% complimentary to work with an advisor. And he's like, I knew it. I'm like, yeah. He was like, but you might want to kind of spin it like she's still kind of right. I mean, just, dude to dude. And he starts laughing. And he was like, well played. But,
yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. It's like going, okay, here's the way you play this. You're wrong. Forget it. You're right, but not in reality. She said it. You're wrong. Just deal with it. You need to learn this before you get married, no matter what the argument's about, no matter how right you are, you're wrong. You're done. You're toast. I mean, just get used to it. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But so
exactly.
Okay, Nick, do me a favor. Give me the most common misconception people have when they come to you and they're in trouble. Say something happens to them, and they come to you and they're like going, how am I not covered? What is one of the things that happens all the time because they don't take the time to understand everything?
Okay, so I'll give you 2 things. The first thing is, individuals, when I talk to them, they're like, well, Nick, I need health insurance. Well, like very few people say I actually need health insurance, just period, right? But they're like, hey, but it turns out I need this health insurance, but it's not open enrollment, so I can't sign up. So you're trying to tell me that I have to wait until November to sign up, and I'm like, no. That's the benefit of working with an advisor. As an advisor, every day is open enrollment for me. This blew my mind when I figured it out, by the way. So I can write a plan 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Not an issue. There is no open enrollment for me. Every day is open enrollment. So that's the first thing that blew my mind. It was a common misconception. Another misconception is, well, Nick, I'm already on a plan, but I know that, for example, like I did open enrollment this year. It was fine. I selected a plan just to check a box. I realized that plan, pardon my French, but I realized the plan sucks a bunch, and it's just not a cool plan for me, and I just want to get off of it. But I'm stuck to it until next open enrollment, right? The answer is no. You can leave any health insurance for any time at any reason. That's it. And that health insurance company is required by law to refund you the unused balance from your premium that in the month that you cancel it, which is a huge deal. Most people don't know that, right? And that's also one of those things that they won't tell you. So fun fact, if you have a sibling, you'll understand this one. So my little brother, I love him to death, right? But he's one of those, like, I'll catch you on your BS kind of guys, you know? And so I told him the same thing, and he was like, uh-huh, sure. And I'm like, I'm just letting you know. He's like, sure. I mean, even though I have a license and blah, 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 my little brother doesn't believe me. So I'm like, whatever. So he spends legit 2 hours on the phone with the insurance company, finally gets through to somebody, and then they finally tell him, well, yeah, I mean, you can leave anytime you want, but you can't come back until open enrollment. And he was like, so you're telling me I can leave anytime I want? They're like, yeah, but you can't come back until open enrollment, so don't leave. And he was like, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. You could have just said this 2 hours ago. Like, and then he calls me back and he's like, you're right. I'm like, hey, can you repeat that? Sorry, my ears aren't working.
Isn't that one of the greatest things with brothers? It's like going to you said what? And yeah. And what was the other thing? You had one more thing for us?
Yeah, and the other thing is as well is so things that individuals don't realize, right? So like when you said, I think how you phrased it is like when you realize like, oh no, like I should have had X, Y, or Z, right? So actually, you know what? Instead of that one, I'm going to give you another nugget that's actually kind of important, right? So, okay, so this is actually really important. So if you're listening, take notes, do whatever you need to. I am going to give you a nugget that will really, really, really help out. So, health insurance premiums in general, in the hardcore general, right, is a cool spitball formula. If you take your age, add a 0 to it, give yourself a tolerance of approximately $75, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, about $75, right? That's how much it should cost per person, right? And then if you have a dependent, add on about $130 per dependent, right? Now, take that number and basically just kind of add it up for whatever your family situation is. If you're single, do just the first one. If you're single with a child, do the second one. Family, so on and so forth, follow a pattern, right? If that number that you get out of that equation is way less, like way, way, way less, then you probably don't have what you think you have. Or the government is paying part of it, like a subsidy from like the government, basically. Or your workplace is paying for part of it. But if the government's not paying for a little bit, or your company isn't paying for a little bit, you don't have what you think you have, right? On the flip side of that, if it is way more than what that number is, you are way overpaying, and we should definitely have a out of the fact, right?
Right.
And so that's really, really at maybe 625-ish, give or take, right? Like tops, if I did my spitball right. But anyway, regardless, 625-ish, right? So she's like, man, I love my insurance. I'm like, that's so cool. well, what kind is it? She's like, it's through this specific company, but I really love my premium. I'm like, what's your premium? And she's like, I pay $250 a month. And I'm like, that's cool. And I was like, does anybody else pay for part of it, like the other part of it? And she's like, no, it's just $250 a month. I was like, okay, we should chat. And pre-analysis for sure. I mean, if it's fantastic, I'll let you know. If it's not, I'll let you know. I'm very, very transparent as far as that's concerned. So I had a quick call with her, and we did a screen share, and I was looking through her document, and we made it to the first page of her PDF, and there's some little print right on the bottom of that page. She scrolled past it, and I was like, wait, let's go backwards. And I went backwards. I zoomed in, and I read it. It says, this is not health insurance, nor should it ever be used as health insurance. This is purely a supplemental product.
Oh, my God.
And she read that, and her jaw hit the floor, and she's like, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm like, nope. And she's like, oh, my God, the person that sold it to me said it was real insurance. And I'm like, it's a supplement. She's like, oh, my God. Like, how can these people do this? And I'm like, there are people out there that will treat you like a transaction, which is why I suggest working with somebody like myself, because we're specifically trained not to do that, obviously. And it's ethics, too, which is a big deal. It's a huge ethics thing for me. But at any rate, she was like, oh, my gosh. So I was like, have you ever had to use it? And she's like, no, I haven't. I was like, well, then you've been really lucky. For how many years? And she's like, 3 years. And I'm like, well, consider yourself very lucky. And so I was like, well, just for fun, we'll go ahead and run through a quick scenario. Say, for example, you broke a bone and you got to go to the ER. She's like, okay, or the urgent care. She's like, okay. I was like, let's see what your plan would cover on that one. Her supplemental plan would have given her $100 for the ER visit, period, right? And then for the broken bone, it would have given her, I think, like $200, period, and that's it. And I was like, so you're looking at probably a $6,000 to $7,000 bill, and they would pay for about $300 of that. She's like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm like, that's why people work with me. And she was like, wow, that's huge. Okay, let's work through it. And I ended up getting her a plan that was, it covered it very comprehensively, and it fit well within that formula. So just use that formula, and I'm empowering each one of you that are listening to take charge of your situation and reclaim your own premiums. Because reclaiming your premium, that's what that means. That is basically taking the money that you're blindly spending every single month and applying it to something that actually suits your situation and works for you and does what it's supposed to do and works when you need it to work, which is how I came up with the company name.
Well, as we've told you, or as we've told people many times on my shows, we know that, look, personal experiences, you should never, ever, ever be without health insurance, because you're going to get hurt if you do. As soon as you don't have health insurance, that's when you're going to get hurt. So, but yeah. We're now being joined by Sarah and Emily, as you guys can see. But before, ladies, you do something, I want to make Nick feel safe and make him feel like he's at home. So here you go, Nick, a little something for you, buddy.
Oh my goodness gracious, you guys are awesome, dude.
So yeah, I had to look it up. I had to do it. So, but so Nick, how can people get a hold of you if they want to maybe compare what they've got to what they need?
Absolutely. You can go to reclaimyourpremium.com, and from there you can get a hold of me there. If you're on Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/reclaimyourpremium. I also own the hashtag Reclaim Your Premium, so you can type in hashtag Reclaim Your Premium on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, and you'll find me there. Or if you don't remember any of that, just remember the 3 words, Reclaim Your Premium, and I'm the entire first page of Google with the exception of maybe the last 2 links. As long as you remember those 3 words, you'll find me no matter what.
Well, and you know what? If you look this man up on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or any of that, just look for the guy who's doing great videos and entertaining the hell out of you, because he really does do that. So yeah, you really truly do. And Nick, this was a great surprise. I'm glad that I got to talk to you. Ladies, did you have anything to ask Mr. Nicholas here, or Nick, before he goes?
Our favorite banana is here.
Dude, you guys are awesome.
Do you have a favorite banana story? And you know what? You told me this. Why don't you share with people? Give us the story of the banana.
Okay, so what these guys have been talking about? So I do a lot of Zooms, right? Now my background for a Zoom is like an extraordinary amount of bananas. So basically, what it was is I work very closely with this networking organization called the Happy Neighborhood Project. It's really really cool, and so I show up and I run all these meetings, right? So I show up and one of my co-hosts is like, I get there and she's like, banana, banana, banana. Nick's here, banana, banana. And I'm like, do I say bananas a lot? And she's like, yeah, you say bananas a lot. I was like, oh, I had no idea. So like a couple of days goes by and it's her birthday. So I was like, oh, just for shits and giggles, I'll go ahead and put bananas on my virtual background. Why not, right? So I did. And she just thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread. So I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. So here I am a couple weeks later on a Zoom call, like one of those really, really long ones where you can turn off your camera and stuff. So I did. And I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I might make a background out of these fun little bananas just for fun, right? So I did. And, as soon as I finished my background and had like my cool little animations and stuff going on, I was like, all right, so let's do this. So I turned my camera back on. And as soon as I turned my camera back on, I'm in a Zoom room full of I think it was about 400 people on the call. And as soon as I turn my camera back on, the first thing I hear is like a little bit of silence, and it's like banana, banana. Who has the bananas? There's bananas. Somebody's got bananas. And it was like for a good solid 10 seconds. That's all anybody said was bananas. And I was like, huh. And I was like, well, there might be something to this. I think I don't know. And so I just kind of kept it, and I've accidentally branded myself incredibly well with bananas ever since.
Well, all I know is Nick. The first time that when somebody said, "Yeah, you and Nick need to talk," I was like, "Going okay." They asked, "Have you ever talked to Nick?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think so. Name doesn't sound familiar." You come on, and it says Nick is in the waiting room. I click it on. There you are, and I'm like, "Banana Man, I do know who you are." It's like,
The banana is forever going to be connected with you now.
yeah.
There you go.
But
when I send email invites, if I'm doing like a virtual one-to-one with somebody and I'm sending an invite so they can schedule it, I put the hyperlink inside of a banana, and I'll send them a banana. I'm like, hey, go ahead and click this banana for a one-to-one. And they're like, oh, I want to click a banana. It's kind of fun.
Now, just saying, you might be having a little bit of fun with this banana thing. So, but you know what?
Life's too short not that fun.
Yeah, it truly does work for you. So, but hey, Nick, thanks for joining us on such late notice. Thanks for coming on, and you're more than welcome to join us anytime you want. We've got plenty of shows and plenty of time for you to spread your message. But you keep safe out there. Enjoy Houston, and have a great time, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again for having me.
No problem. Hey, everybody. Once again, that was Banana Man, Nick Davis. Not kind of it. That guy's a kick in the ass. He really is. I mean,
he's a very kid at heart.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's a little bananas.
Yeah.
It was a bad.
Just a tiny bit.
Yeah. I didn't want to say a little. I didn't want to say a little fruity. I mean, but I just didn't want to say that. So. But yeah, so hey, I want to thank both of the Nicks for coming on. You guys came on really short notice. Ladies, you guys are going to be talking next week to a friend that we're trying to help her get on a show, Jennifer A. Whitaker. And do you guys have anything else planned for next week's show? Oh.
The only thing that I think I'm aware of is that the last I heard about it, Jennifer was planning on coming on and bringing a guest on.
Oh, that's right. So, but yeah, we also want to let you know that Emily, yeah, that would be great. That would definitely be great to have him on. But Sarah, Emily, and I would also like to let you guys all know we are working hard to turn the PAC channel into something special. We want to get it turned into a nonprofit, but to do that, we need to show people what we know what we do. You guys just watched an hour of me. You know I have no clue what I'm doing, but the truth is that we want to try to help people. That's everything that we aspire to do, and we invite you to join us. Do you have a story to tell? Let us know. Do you have a business that you need to advertise, let people know that you're out there? Get a hold of us here at the PAC channel. You can call me at 970-909-0751, 970-909-0751. Or we've also got a website or not a website, we've also got an email address that is PAC channel. Oh, come on. PAC channel host?
Is it PAC channel community pay it forward?
No, not right now.
PACchannelstaff@gmail.com.
What was that one more time?
It's PACchannelstaff@gmail.com.
There you go. PACchannelstaff@gmail.com. Yeah, well, see, that's the reason why you have backup. When you're not smart enough to remember everything, you have backup. Good lesson in life. So, but yeah, get a hold of us if you'd like to join us. One of our shows, we'd love to have you on. We'd love to tell the message. We'd love to spread the great word. Please remember to join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, 5 Mountain. We are hoping to have a great friend of mine, Janet from Healing Warriors, on. They have a 5K coming up. And on the 22nd, and Healing Warriors gives free medical care to our veterans here in Colorado, and we're really hoping that we get more people to see what they do and join their program and see what we can do to help them and help our veterans. We'll also be showing the interview that you guys have hopefully seen before. If you haven't, we hope that you see it tonight. It's the interview that we did with Brian Gibson a couple months ago. Next week on PAC channel, we will be talking to Brian Gibson again. We'll be updating everything that's going on, along with having a couple other guests. Please remember, love somebody out there because somebody out here loves you. Nobody needs to go it alone. When we all come together, please make sure that you remember there's only one, there's only one race on earth, and it's the human race. Let's take care of each other. We all can get killed by cold. We all can get killed by hunger. Let's take care of each other and make sure nobody gets hurt. All right. My name is Zach. I've got my great friends, Emily Goldmer and Sarah Goodall. We are the PAC channel. We invite you to join us. Come be with us. And you know what? I started the show this way. I'm going to end the show this way. You'll see this again tonight. So next week, I found out we're going to have a real intro and exit. So, but we'll see you again next week on Community Impact. Thank you.
Stepping out of her fear, bring me home. Out alone, show me the way. You wanna be a part of Sunset Boulevard.